Let's go. What's up, guys? Today we're going to talk about strategies that you could use to get started with house hacking. We'll also cover tools and resources that'll really help and things that I wish I knew before I started. My name is Chris. I'm a licensed real estate agent here in Florida, and I've been house hacking for 2 years. The first strategy is buying a single family home. You live in one of the bedrooms and then you rent out all the other bedrooms. You get extra bonus points if you find a house in a walkable community. Now, some people will take this to an extreme where they'll live in the family room and put up like a divider curtain and rent out the rest of the house. Whoa. I like this strategy better if you have friends or family members that are already looking for a place to live and you know you would enjoy living with them. Say hello, ghost. Okay, now for number 2, it's buying the same single family home, but instead of you living in the house, you're gonna buy a used camper and park it in the driveway. This strategy will help you increase your cash flow because you'll rent out the entire house. But the major downside to this strategy is the initial expense. You'll have to not only buy a house, but you'll have to buy a camper. And I've seen used campers anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000, but that's still a lot of money. Other expenses are gonna be hookups. For example, a water hookup could be anywhere from $20 if you're gonna do it yourself, or up to $750 if you're gonna hire a plumber.
Ma'am, I do my own plumbing.
Okay, now for the third strategy, it's still buying a single family home, but one that has specifically a mother-in-law suite, an ADU. You have a lot more personal space than if you lived in the same house as your renters. And this is the strategy that I actually did. I have about an 800 square foot mother-in-law that I live in that's in the backyard. It's like a tiny home. And then I rent out the entire main house. A downside to this strategy is usually ADUs don't have separate meters for electricity. So it's a little bit harder to charge your tenants for utilities, but in the grand scheme of things, that's a small obstacle. I feel like I've gained so many dad skills, renovating, being a homeowner and a landlord. Moving on to the fourth strategy, it's buying a multifamily home. Now, duplexes are the most popular, but triplexes and quadplexes all count as residential real estate. They're not commercial. So you can get a traditional owner-occupied loan with a low down payment. Another great benefit to having a duplex or a multifamily home is oftentimes they'll have separate meters, so it's easier to charge for utilities. But a major downside to having a multifamily home is there's usually a shared wall, which can result in sometimes there being noisy neighbors. The fifth method is buying a single family home to rent, and then you live in a converted garage, which means you'll either have to convert the garage into living space or find a home that already has their garage converted. It's fairly straightforward. The downside of this one is the quality of life wouldn't be as great. You'll also probably have to have a wall unit, so you might have a little bit more humidity, and it's unlikely there'll be a bathroom in the garage, so you'll probably have to share a bathroom in the house with some of those tenants. But as long as it's in the lease, everyone knows what's going on, it's fine. It's a garage, but it's fine. There's actually a principle of house hacking. It's the comfortability versus income scale, meaning that the more comfortable you are, the less income you're gonna make. But the less comfortable you are, the more income you'll make. All right, the sixth method is buying a mixed use building. And you've seen these where there's commercial retail establishments downstairs, and then there's like condos upstairs. And the crazy thing is you can actually get an owner occupied loan for many of these mixed use buildings, meaning that you can rent out the downstairs commercial area while living upstairs, offsetting your mortgage expense with the rental. Now, I have to mention that this is not financial advice, is not legal advice. Make sure to talk to your lender or a financial advisor before making any investment decisions. And the seventh method, turning part of your space into a business. So this is a little bit different than just having renters, because when you have a business, the turnover rate is a lot more. So let me give you some examples. Let's say you did short-term rentals like Airbnb out of a spare bedroom. Or let's say you turned part of your house into a recording studio for YouTubers or music artists, and then renting that out by the hour. Or another idea would be renting out your garage as storage space for someone to either park their car or keep their stuff. All right, so these next 3 strategies are for people who aren't quite ready to buy their own home yet, but still want to reduce their living expense, which is totally possible. So strategy number 8 is rent hacking. And basically what rent hacking is let's say you find a house for rent. So you would go to the landlord, the owner, and explain that you want to rent their house and you want to live there, but you also want to sublet the rooms to help you pay for your expenses. And you would tell the landlord that you're willing to pay an extra $100, $200 a month, whatever they ask. And in turn, you want to make sure that in the lease agreement, there's no clauses or stipulations that might restrict you from subletting. Okay, moving on to strategy number 9, and it's paid pet sitting. Now, this won't really give you a stable place to live, so you'll need to either live at home or rent a place or even own a place. But the great thing is there's so many websites that'll literally pay you to travel and pet sit their animals. There's housesitters.com, Trusted House Sitters, Nomador, Mind My House, House Carers, and Aussie House Sitters. Now, this last method is more of an honorable mention, but But if you're in college, then a great strategy to get free housing is to become an RA, a resident assistant. Not only will you get free accommodations, but you'll also be able to make friends and network at the same time. And a quick bonus on top of that, a lot of times you can apply for scholarships that will help cover your housing expense. Okay, now that we talked about the strategies, let's talk about the tools that I use to manage my rental property. And the first is rentometer.com. Now, this is a free tool and it helps you estimate the price that you can charge for rent. Now, it's really easy to use. You just type in your address, type in the amount of bedrooms, and then it looks at 20 to 40 comparable houses that have been rented out in the last 12 months within a 2-mile radius. Now, the next tool that I really recommend is when you're collecting rent, I like to use apartments.com. And the reason I like this is because the tenants are able to connect their bank account, and every month there's an automatic ACH transfer that occurs from their bank and that goes directly into your bank account. I also like this website because you can screen your tenants right there. You don't have to use a separate service, which there's plenty of other services, but I like having it all centralized on one platform. It really helps the whole process. I'd also recommend using a free management software like Trello or Notion to help you keep track of your expenses, repairs that are coming up, stuff like that. Okay, now onto the subject of location. Where do you buy your rental property? Well, Brandon Turner once said something that really stuck with me. With stocks, if you get insider information and then you actually invest, that's illegal. That's insider trading. Nancy Pelosi. But with real estate, if you hear that a Walmart's being built in a certain neighborhood or maybe a Whole Foods, and then you invest in that neighborhood before that new business came, that's almost insider information, but it's not illegal by any means. And you can absolutely take advantage of this strategy. Now, personally, I believe that the areas right outside really popular metropolitan areas are the best to invest in real estate because likely we're gonna see higher appreciation. More people are gonna move to the suburbs outside of the city. So copy and paste this mindset into your own situation. Another important note is if you're gonna become a landlord, make sure to be an ethical landlord. If you go on the internet, you'll see that landlords typically don't have the best reputation, and it's because there's a lot of unethical landlords out there. Don't be like that. If there's repairs that are needed in the house, get those repairs taken care of. When it's time for the tenants to renew their lease, don't price gouge them by increasing the rent 10% or 20%. No, keep the rent a reasonable price. You're here to offer a service. You're creating relatively affordable housing and you're giving peace of mind to your tenants. They don't have to worry about a mortgage payment. They don't have to worry about repairs or capital expense. No, they have peace of mind because they're renters. The landlord deals with all those headaches, and rightfully so. You always want to think win-win. How can I win and how can my tenants win? And let's go further. How can the neighborhood win and how can the community win? Let's talk about some of the reasons why owning real estate is such an incredible idea beyond just potential cash flow. And the first would be appreciation. Now, the national average for housing appreciation is just about 3.8%. It's going to vary greatly on your location. I know for me in Orlando, we've seen over the past 10 years over a 9% appreciation rate every single year. That's just an example of the power of real estate. Another benefit is principal pay down. Now, every month when you pay your mortgage, you're paying principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And if you put down less than 20% as a down payment, then you're going to be paying PMI, which is private mortgage insurance, and it sucks, but it's there to protect the banks in case someone doesn't pay their mortgage. But anyway, every month when you make that mortgage payment, a portion goes towards your principal, your outstanding balance. So for me, $670 every single month goes towards principal. It's almost like a piggy bank of equity that I'm building in my home. All right, so let's talk about some of the downsides to owning your own home. And the biggest one, it's gonna be capital expense. Big repairs that your house is gonna need. And every month you should be putting away a portion of that rent payment into a savings account to prepare yourself for these big expenses. So an example for me is I just had to get a bunch of oak trees trimmed and cut down because hurricane season was coming, and I'm really glad that I got these trees cut down before Hurricane Ian came. That was $7,000. But there's always gonna be capital expense. You're gonna have to change the AC unit, change the water heater, things like that. With owning a house, that's your responsibility. Another big expense is vacancy expense. And this occurs when your tenants move out and there's some time before getting new tenants. So you're gonna have to pay all of that mortgage yourself. And when tenants move out, there's typically repairs that need to be done. Now, on that note about repairs, there is another way to make money in real estate, and that is through forced appreciation, meaning that you buy a property that needs a little bit of work. It's a fixer-upper. Now, ideally, you don't buy fixer-uppers that don't need big, expensive repairs, like having a messed up foundation or a problematic roof or having a really old AC unit. No, it's better to buy properties that need cosmetic repairs. This might be like painting the kitchen cabinets or changing a bathroom vanity or even scraping popcorn ceilings and retexturing and adding recessed lighting. That makes a big difference. And a lot of these repairs you can actually do yourself and learn how to do it on YouTube. Another note is you're going to want to include a washer and dryer in your rental. Now, I'd recommend going to a scratch and dent sale because your tenants aren't going to care if the washing machine's a little bit scratched, and it works just as well. But having a washer and dryer in your rental will make it more marketable, and you could charge more for rent. So it's a really good idea. Now, when it comes to actually creating a lease, there's a lot of free templates you can find online that are state specific, but you're gonna wanna edit them to include things that aren't in the general template. For example, if you're living on premises, you're gonna need to note that a lot of these amenities are shared, like the backyard or the trash collection. A good lawyer will be able to help you out with all that. Another note is you need to require your tenants to have renter's insurance, and you need them to send you a copy so you can verify they actually have it. Now, for me, I started looking for a property in December of 2019, but I didn't end up buying my property until October of 2020. Now, I chose to do a conventional 5% down mortgage. So if I put down a full 20%, I wouldn't have such a high monthly expense, but this is what I'm working with. So altogether, I'm collecting $2,225 from my tenants every month, and that includes both rent and utilities. You'll see that when you factor in all of my monthly expenses and then subtract the rent, I'm actually in the negative $1,350 every month. And yearly, I'm in the negative about $16,000, which on the surface kind of sounds like a lot. But here's the real kicker. My home appreciated over $34,000 of value. It actually works out to being like I made $18,000 when you factor in appreciation. And that's not even including the principal pay down that I've been building up over the past 2 years and will continue building up over the next 30 years. That's the power of real estate. Now, there are down payment assistance programs that you could look into. It's definitely worth asking your lender and doing some research yourself. There's nothing wrong with renting, and there's a lot of benefits to renting. But when you hear how much money that's being wasted on rent, you start to think, how can I use that money to build rather than just sustain? And in most cases, it's worth it to level up. With that said, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button, subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll see you guys next time. Alexa, max volume.
Do you believe it?